Hi, this is Mrs. Compton. Today we're going to be looking at argumentation, the idea that everything is an argument. If you could grab your notebooks, please, and set up a section in your notebooks for argumentation. You're going to take notes on this presentation, so you want to jot down the main ideas and the basic definitions as we go. Feel free to pause whenever you need to as we go through. Tomorrow I'm going to be looking at your notes to make sure that you viewed the lecture, and we're going to be applying these ideas in an in-class activity and then expanding upon the idea of argumentation. Argumentation is the basis of a lot of what we do within this class. Mrs. Bray and I are going to ask you to apply these ideas as you read a text, as you write a paragraph, as you present something to the class, and we're going to use this terminology throughout the entire year. So it's really key that you understand these concepts, and we're going to keep coming back to them over and over. So today, or tonight, please look at this presentation, jot down the main ideas, jot down any questions that you have, and we'll be talking about this in more detail tomorrow. We're having you do this individually on your own so that you can pause when you need to make sure you got all of the notes, and instead of doing it as a big in-class lecture. So hopefully you'll be able to get everything down, and we'll be applying these ideas tomorrow. So make sure you have really clear notes because you'll be able to use your notes in class. So argumentation. The basic idea is that everything we say is an argument. Why do we make arguments? You don't need to jot this down, but realize that we create arguments to convince and persuade people to do something, to inform people about a particular topic, to explore different decisions that we might be making, and to actually make those decisions. Think about some of the things you might have said that are actually arguments, and you may not have realized it. You might be talking with your friends about winter activities, and you say, "Oh, snowboarding, that's the best activity. You get so much exercise, you're out in the snow, it's nice and chilly, you don't sweat a whole lot," or maybe you sweat a lot, but you say that it's the best activity. Or I tell you that we have to read a certain book in class. You're like, "I hate this book," but you have all kinds of reasons why you don't like it. Or maybe when you came back to school, you were saying to your friends, "I had the most exciting summer ever because of a job you had or a trip you took," and you have reasons for that. Maybe as the Packers play, you say to your family, "The Packers are the best football team," and you have reasons for why you think that. You're talking about the players, you're talking about Lambeau Field, you're talking about the management or the coaching. When you're talking to your parents, you might say, "Oh, everyone else gets to go to this concert," and you have all kinds of people in mind that their parents are letting them go, and so you're trying to persuade your parents to do the same thing. Maybe after lunch, your stomach's rumbling a little bit, and you're like, "Ugh, cafeteria food is too greasy," and you have some ideas in mind as to why that's true. Or maybe after a fun day with your friends, you're like, "My friends are so amazing," and you have specific ideas in mind as to why those friends are amazing. We're going to come back to these ideas as we go throughout the year, where you'll see that all of these things that you say on a regular basis are arguments. These are actually claims that you are making, and you have evidence to support those ideas. We're going to talk about how you can actually structure these ideas into an argument. So, let's look first at the different types of arguments. We can have a question of fact, so something that we're putting forth as being fact. I always think about science when I think about this type of argument. So for example, the water cycle is complex, and you can look at all the different pieces of the water cycle and how it works. And you're making the claim that the water cycle is complex. When you look at all the pieces and parts of that, you can make that as a question of fact. We can also look at questions of values. This is where your morals come in, the things that you believe to be true. So I believe that education is important beyond high school. This is a question of value because I value education. So whether you go to technical college, you go to a four-year college, you go into an apprenticeship, educating yourself and being a lifelong learner, I think is really important. That's part of my value system. So that's a question of value. So we can see all kinds of social norms as part of value. We can also have questions of policy. So for example, high school should have a dress code. You may agree or disagree with this, but that would be a policy that a high school would have, that you have to have a specific dress code. So for example, we don't allow really short shorts at school during the warm months, or you can't have a certain logo on a t-shirt. So we have a specific dress code, and that's a policy that we have here at the high school. You'll note that all of these are things that you can agree or disagree with. You might not think that the water cycle is terribly complex. You might not think that education is important. You might not think that high school should have a dress code. That's what makes it an argument. There's both people who agree with the statement and people who disagree with the statement. And there are shades of gray. It's not like it's an all yes or an all no. So realize that arguments have two sides to them. There are 4 key elements to an argument. We're going to break each of these down, so you can either write them down now or you can write them down as we get to them. Those key elements are the claim, the evidence, the reasoning, and then a counterclaim, which looks at the opposite side. You've actually addressed all of these ideas in middle school as you were creating persuasive pieces and as you were writing informatively, but you might not have actually heard these terms: claim, evidence, reasoning, and counterclaim. Mrs. Bray and I are going to use these terms over and over and over again, so I want to make sure you are really, really comfortable with them. So we're going to start with the claim. This is what you need to get down in your notes. The things in blue are the things that are really important. If you want to write down the whole thing, you definitely can. And if you want to write down the example, that's up to you if it helps you to understand. Remember, notes are for your purpose, so write down everything that makes sense to you, and don't feel like you have to write down every word unless you have to. So realize that notes are just for you. I just want to make sure you have those key ideas down. Now, the claim is what every argument starts with. We always start with the claim, and that's the point that you are making. The claim is the idea that you are putting forth as fact. So all of those little statements we went through at the beginning of this presentation are claims. That snowboarding is a great activity, that cafeteria food is too greasy, that you had the most exciting summer ever. Those are all claims. We make claims all the time. If you come in after a long weekend and you say to your friends, "Wow, I had the most boring weekend," that's a claim. Or you're like, "Wow, that test was really hard." That's a claim. We put forth claims all of the time. The example I'm going to go through in this presentation is that pizza is the best food. It's definitely an argument because you could agree with this statement or disagree with this statement, but it's definitely a claim that pizza is the best food. So that's my statement. That's what I'm putting forth as fact. Oops. Let's see if we can move forward here. There we go. So our example, pizza is the best food. Now we're going to go on to the evidence. So while your ideas are absolutely fantastic, you need to have evidence to support your ideas. So once you have a claim, you have to support it. And you support that with evidence. The best evidence comes from researched professional sources. So Mrs. Bray and I are going to really focus on actually having qualified sources from professional either websites or journals or books to support the claims that you make. Any claim that you make needs to have some evidence. So if you are saying that cafeteria food is too greasy, and you might actually claim or have evidence that says the lasagna had grease pooling on the top of it. So that's the evidence that supports that maybe that cafeteria food is too greasy. Or if you're saying that the Packers are the best team, your evidence might be looking at Aaron Rodgers as a quarterback or Mike McCarthy as a coach, and you actually are coming up with specific reasons, evidence that supports that claim. If I'm claiming that pizza is the best food, then I have to have evidence to support that idea. So I'm going to look at the idea that Congress has supported the nutritional value of pizza due to its vegetable components. And I have my MLA citation, which is from Sarah Cliff, and she wrote an article that it actually says that no, Congress did not declare pizza as a vegetable. And it didn't declare pizza as a vegetable, but it said that the tomato paste inside pizza tomato is considered to be a vegetable. And so on the food pyramid, as cafeterias try to create a well-balanced meal for students, they can actually consider pizza as a vegetable because of the tomato paste. So Congress has determined this, and that actually overrides the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which said pizza could not be determined or be seen as a vegetable. But Congress has supported the nutritional value. So I have that evidence, and then now I have to explain it. So that comes into our next part. So we have our evidence. Note my MLA citation. We're going to be talking about this and how to do a proper MLA citation, which you looked at last year. Oops, now it's going to try to get me into that website because I clicked it. And I shouldn't have done it. Here you go. Here's the actual article from the Washington Post. All right. See if we can get my Prezi going here. Yes. Nope, that's not my next. Let's see if we can get back to... There we go. Reasoning. So once we have our claim and we have our evidence, then we have to explain our evidence, and that is reasoning. Reasoning ties your evidence to your claim. It's basically the explanation that strengthens your point. It explains how your evidence supports your claim. So your reasoning can be simple as we start in the year, but as you move through the year, we're hoping to see more complex explanations. Reasoning can also be seen as an explanation, if you want to write that down, if that makes more sense to you. So you have your claim, you have your evidence to support your claim, and then you have your reasoning, which explains how your evidence supports your claim. So I might say that Congress identifying the nutritional value of pizza supports that this is the best food. So I want to come back to that idea of pizza being the best food. Pizza contains many food groups, vegetables, grains, and dairy. That should be dairy, not diary, to support healthy living. So we have multiple food groups that are represented, and so that makes pizza one of the best foods. So I have my reasoning explaining how my evidence supports my claim. So it all ties into a nice package. Then we have the counterclaim, which is the final piece of a complete argument. As we start, we're not going to ask you to look at counterclaims, but this is going to come in later, so I want you to have this idea down in your notes. Counterclaims are the views of people with differing opinions. It's important to acknowledge the views of the other side and preemptively try to answer their claims, remembering that an argument has two sides, and we want to look at the other side and try to understand the other opinion and try to answer what they might say within our argument. So, for example, while some may say that the fat content of pizza is high, that's definitely a counter argument, right? Pizza might not be the best food for you because it has a high fat content. I'm trying to answer that. If you limit the amount of fatty meats and cheeses, it can be a healthy option. So I'm coming back to the idea that pizza is the best food because you take off the sausage and pepperoni and you put on some extra extra peppers and onion, and you have a healthier option. So I'm trying to preemptively answer those who might say pizza's not the best food. So I'm trying to look at that counter argument, that counterclaim. So the complete argument would look something like this. Pizza is the best food. That's my claim. Congress has supported the nutritional value of pizza due to its vegetable components. That would be my evidence. Now I'm explaining it in my reasoning. Congress identifying the nutritional value of pizza supports that it is the best food. Pizza contains many food groups, vegetables, grains, and dairy to support healthy living. While some may say that the fat content of pizza is high, if you limit the amount of fatty meats and cheeses, it can be a healthy option. So there we have a complete argument. It's pretty simple, and this is good to start with. As we go throughout the year, I'm going to ask you to include multiple pieces of evidence and to have more depth in your explanation and reasoning. And your counter argument might actually go in a whole separate paragraph to acknowledge the other side. So we'll look at how we can expand this argument as we go throughout the school year. We're going to use argumentation a lot this year. We're going to actually start with an issue called Guns, Germs, and Steel, and we're going to start that tomorrow once we kind of review argumentation. And after we go through the review stations, we're then going to do Elizabethan England comparison paragraph. You're going to look at Elizabethan England and compare it to life today, and that's in preparation for Romeo and Juliet, where you will be doing some analysis paragraphs and you'll use these ideas. You're going to be doing an interview about 9/11, and you'll do some analysis where you'll use argumentation. We're going to read a book called Sunrise over Fallujah as we study the Middle East, and you'll do some characterization analysis where we'll use argumentation. If you are in English 9 honors, we will be reading Persepolis. In English 9, we might be looking at pieces of Persepolis, and we'll be doing some analysis there where we'll use argumentation. You will be doing a research paper that's a problem and solution paper tied to Latin American problems, and that will have tons of argumentation elements. And you'll be answering the essential question for Africa. That's just a little bit of how we'll use argumentation in first semester. And there's actually a whole lot more. This is the basis for a lot. So make sure you have those key elements down in your notes so you know what a claim is, you know what the evidence is, reasoning, and counterclaim. And we'll come and look at those ideas when we come to class tomorrow. And we'll expand upon these ideas as we go through our first few units. Definitely jot down any questions you have for me, and I will answer those as I go through and check your notes tomorrow. Remember, everything is an argument, and we're going to really focus a lot on argumentation this year as we do our reading, our writing, and our speaking. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you in class.